Welcome into the Week 9 Waiver Wire Show. Ryan is joining me as always, who you can find on Twitter at Mackie_FFB. I am your alternate host, and that is Jeremy, who you can find on Twitter at PopesFFH. Ryan, it's Tuesday. It's Week 8. We just lost the second highest scoring PPR player this week to an injury.
Ugh.
One that affects one of my teams that just crushed all of my dreams and hopes. How are you feeling?
I actually have him in a dynasty league where I'm 7-1 right now, mainly because of him, like 95% because of him. So I still won this week, but it is not looking great for the foreseeable future with him out. So
I mean, at least you're 7-1 and you had him. Like, I mean, I guess that's not the best because like now you're really probably hurting in a contention category there. But I had a team that's like 3-4 and like right on the verge of being in the playoffs and like making it. And I hit the double trouble. I lost Henry because of the injury and Calvin Ridley. So now it's like I'm in this position of, all right, I guess it's dynasty tank time because what am I going to do? Like, you know what I mean? I have other guys, young guys, but like a lot of the teams are around the same as me and like nobody's giving anybody up for a decent price. Like it's in a league that people want like 2 first-round picks or like Jacoby Myers. So it's not going to happen. It's just going to be it's just going to have to be another dismal year for me, at least in that league. My only share of Derrick Henry. The first year I get him, you know, it's just me. Like literally every single player on every single team is getting hurt. So you name it.
Yeah, it's tough. It makes you feel any better. You know that I'm in this mid-season dynasty startup league, and Derrick Henry went with the 101 in a super flex dynasty startup mid-season. So, and that was before the injury, obviously. I think the draft started on Thursday. So there's that.
Yeah. You know, I mean, it doesn't beat the hurt of trading for J.K. Dobbins like 3 days before he tore his ACL, giving up Dalvin Cook. So, you know, in the deal. So, you know, it's just my luck this year. Let it be, you know.
At least Dalvin hasn't been like a top 3 option this year.
Yeah, but I mean, he's going to be by the time we get through the season and no running backs are left.
It's true.
I mean, your top running back right now that's left uninjured is Jonathan Taylor. In PPR, Jonathan Taylor, Austin Eckler, DeAndre Swift. Those are your top 3 in PPR scoring at the moment. Aaron Jones is 4.
Just like everybody knew.
So, and that's like season long. So maybe per game basis it's a little different.
Yeah.
But aside from Derrick Henry, we have other injuries to discuss. Kyler Murray, ankle sprain. I know you have on here. I don't know if it's going to keep him out from week 9. I mean, it's tough because he had it on that last drive there, in which was another reason I lost the week because AJ Green didn't turn around and make that catch. But, you know, that's for a different day. When's their bye week? I should know that. Terrible podcast host, right?
You know, I can't tell you off the top of my head.
Yeah, it's not next week. That's interesting. Like it's something to monitor. Their bye week's pretty far out, so it's not they can't like they can't like use it as like a precautionary. Maybe sit him out. I mean, they will if he's injured, but like just giving him extra time doesn't look like that's going to be a scenario here. Definitely want to monitor that throughout the week. You see a couple do not practices in there that might get a little dicey for Kyler Murray.
Cliff Kingsbury came out and said he's day-to-day as of right now. Having the full weekend off really helped him. So tomorrow's our first day of practice, so we'll see what they say say tomorrow. Like I said, it's first day of practice, so wouldn't be surprised if he's a very limited if he even practices at all. But as long as he gets something in throughout the week, I feel like even if he's limited just on Friday, I feel like he's probably going to go.
Yeah, any limited or any walkthroughs, he's probably going to be good to go. But if he gets into that do not practice type territory, then I'd start to worry as a manager of Kyler Murray.
Friday would be the big day.
Yeah. Jameis out for the year with an ACL tear. I think I saw, too, that there's some MCL issues, or did they verify that didn't happen? Okay. Thought I saw it was MCL, too. So, sadly, Jameis is going to be in an interesting 22 option somewhere, possibly. It's a pretty long timetable, though, especially getting hurt this late in the year. I mean, it's going to be Burrow-like. So, we mentioned Ed 4 there, too. Calvin Ridley is taking a leave of absence, focusing on mental health. Nothing wrong with that. It does kind of stink on the fantasy side, but these guys are human, too, so can't have any disrespect there. But it definitely creates some options there in Atlanta. You might see some stuff from Taj Sharp or Russell Gage, although Russell Gage got blanked in the game without him, so I'm not too sure there. But Tajay Sharp, Kyle Pitts, Hayden Hurst are all going to be guys you want to kind of target. Cordell Patterson for sure. If you're a contender, might be a time to make that trade. I feel like he's going to definitely see a lot of involvement. I don't know about you, Ryan, but without Ridley, I feel like Patterson's probably going to be a huge benefactor too.
Yeah, I personally started Russell Gage and Scott Fishbowl after the news that Ridley broke, and he got me 0 points. So I'm not really sure what to make of the offense. I think outside of Pitts and Patterson, I think it's going to be really hard to start somebody or trust to start somebody. But
I think Hayden Hurst might end up starting to see some too. I think it'll be interesting. You're not going to get anything other than like an upside flex type play. You really have to see how it works out. I didn't see too much of the Carolina game. I haven't gone back through and even really watched much of it either. So I don't know who was covering Gage, but I know Stephon Gilmore was back in the line or was in the lineup for them.
Yeah.
So if Gilmore was on Gage, I would have assumed they would have put Gilmore on Pitts. But I could be wrong. And I feel like Pitts is going to draw the top covering corner. So I think over time, Gage might see some weeks where he's kind of got some viability. But I really do think Ridley kind of hurts Pitts a little bit in that factor. I think if teams start to put the top corner on Kyle Pitts, you might start to see him get locked down a little bit. That's just my worry. I mean, he's a freak athlete, so he could not too. So it's going to be something you have to monitor. James Robinson left the game Sunday with a knee injury. Not supposed to be serious. I believe he's day-to-day too, right?
Yep.
Or is he week-to-week? Yeah, he's day-to-day. I could possibly see them sitting him out, especially against Buffalo. I mean, they're going to need him against Buffalo, but Buffalo's a good run defense. They might sit him out. You might see some Carlos Hyde this week. Definitely a guy to keep an eye on the waiver wire. Might be a guy that could be a little bit cheaper with some other running backs having good performances. Also, Divine Nazigbo could be an option there, but
I'm personally not starting any Jaguars against Buffalo if he's out, to be honest with you.
I mean, I don't want to either, but with all the injuries, I feel like there's some people out there that probably are either A, forced to, or B, don't have too many better options. But I agree. I don't really want to, aside from a PPR guy. That's why I feel like Divine Nazigbo could be a guy. They claimed him back. So Damian Williams, there's a knee injury. Ryan, you had this on here. I don't know, how serious is that? Do you know, or is it just kind of out there?
I was looking. They haven't really put much out, but David Montgomery's due back this week from IR, and Cleo Herbert's looked pretty good. So I don't think if he's fully healthy, if he's not fully healthy, I don't think he plays, just because their depth is already busted up as it is. And along with Montgomery, I believe Tariq Cohen is also on pace to at least be activated off PUP this week. I don't know if he's going to play or not, but if they get all those guys back, then he's kind of irrelevant anyways at that point. So I would just kind of keep an eye on what everybody else's injury history or injury scenario is. If Monty's back, if Tariq Cohen's back, I don't really see path to viability for Damian Williams after that. So,
yeah, that could definitely start getting messy with all those guys coming back. Not great if you're a Montgomery owner, even a Herbert owner or manager, however you want to put it. It just kind of seems like Herbert's kind of taken over. So it's curious to see when Montgomery comes back, what the role is going to be there. Rob Tonyan has a torn ACL, unfortunately. I don't know what we're going to get for viability there for the tight end position. So, Ryan, do you think, I'm not even sure who's going to step in for him because Sternberger's gone. So I don't even know who's behind Robert Tonyan. Do you?
I don't know off the top of my head. I'm looking right now. It looks like Mercedes Lewis would probably be the next guy in line.
Touche. That's right.
Extremely.
He scored the incredibly touchdown that got called back.
So he's going to be a touchdown-dependent option. Not sure if I'm willing to put a waiver claim in for him, but if you're looking to stream, I'd probably be willing to add him for free if the waivers claim. I doubt he's going to get picked up. So
fair,
but he might. But I still don't think I'm willing to put a waiver claim in for him.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like he's like a free ad after. Because Robert Tonyan is kind of even touchdown dependent. You saw him a little bit more receiving there in the game he got hurt because of the lack of Devontae Adams and Allen Lazard and other options. But with those guys coming back, the tight end position probably gets a little dicey there for Green Bay. Josh Jacobs, chest injury coming off the bye, should be good to go. I mean, that gets a little bit dicey with Kenyon Drake. But obviously good to have him back. He's a startable option no matter what. Unless you have a stacked running back room. But with all the injuries, I feel like probably not. T.Y. Hilton's concussion protocol kind of seems like he's one of those guys that's not being able to stay healthy this year, unfortunately. I liked him coming into the season, especially with Carson Wentz. But, I mean, he's got plenty of time to clear concussion protocol for Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
But it's definitely something you want to monitor. If he doesn't, again, it's Michael Pittman's show pretty much there at the moment.
Yeah.
CMC is eligible to return, although it says that he's unknown for weeks 9 through 10. I don't see him rushing CMC back. Kind of seems like the wheels have kind of fallen off there in Carolina. I think they'll just continue to see what Chuba Hubbard gives them, which is something that is not been unusable. He's been pretty decent in a fill-in position there. So I don't see him rushing CMC back. Jalen Reagor's an ankle injury. Ryan, do you know much on Jalen Reagor or?
No, he just seems, from what I've seen, he seems to be week to week, but he hasn't really been doing much anyways, and that offense hasn't really been looking all that great. So I don't really think.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like Jalen. Yeah, if he's week to week, I would assume that he's probably going to miss week 1. Usually, that's how I take a week to week injury. You kind of usually assume they miss the first week. There's obviously the exceptions, but I usually lean towards that. So he's probably going to miss this week. So Quez Watkins, if he's out on your waiver wire, is a decent ad, but most likely not. Maybe Fulgham. Is he on the active roster? Or he got cut, didn't he? I don't even know who's behind Quez Watkins.
Sure.
Greg Ward, I think, still there. He could be an option that you could see some run, but we're talking deep ads there.
According to Sleeper, it is Devonta Smith, Jalen Reagor, Quez Watkins, and then you do have Greg Ward there. J.J. Arcega-Whiteside's there. But none of those guys are really options unless you, like you said, they're super deep leagues. So not anybody I'm interested in unless you're super desperate for a wide receiver.
Yeah, unless you're just like my dynasty rosters that have 35 guys injured of a 30-man roster. What's up? All right, Latavius Murray, questionable. I think he returns. I think that's why they sat him out before the bye week. Again, he's a startable option at this point at the running back position, especially with it being the Ravens. So, Ryan, do you like Latavius Murray if he returns this week, or do you think it's more Devontae Freeman? I just feel like Devontae Freeman didn't do enough last week to get rid of Latavius Murray, in my opinion. So,
Yeah, if you look back at what he did before the injury, I mean, he had one of his better games. Was pretty efficient and scored a touchdown, but that backfield is just kind of iffy at the moment. He's definitely startable, but just because of the offense that he's in and the role he's likely to have, but I don't think he moves the needle for your fantasy team all that much just because of the role he's likely to play in a shared backfield. I'm curious to see what they do with guys with Devontae Freeman and Tyson Williams and Le'Veon Bell. All those guys are still active on the roster, so I'm just kind of.
Wish we would have had a trade. Just messy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Dawson Knox is listed as questionable. I think he's most likely out. I highly doubt he plays, especially against the Jaguars. Not that any team should be slept on, but highly unlikely that the Bills will need Dawson Knox this week. So I'm sure they'll sit him out in this situation.
Yeah.
Dak is questionable. I think Dak does play this week. I think that's why they sat him out against Minnesota. Give him that extra week. Obviously, it's something you're going to want to monitor. I'm sure if there's any soreness, they might sit him out.
He looked ready. If you watched the pregame, he looked good and looked fine, ready to go. But they did say that if he had like any sort of soreness whatsoever, that he would be sitting. So he must have had at least a little bit of soreness. So I would expect him to play given how well he looked in pregame. And if he's starting, you're starting him. So
got a question. I'm a Cowboys fan, so please don't make this harder than it is for me. I'm not sure what XD is, Ryan. Do you know what that is?
It's like a smiley face type of thing.
Don't see it, but okay. Amari Cooper for Mike Williams. I'm assuming this is more of a rest of the season type trade, possibly redraft.
Yeah, I think that's kind of.
I mean, if I'm being honest, I might keep Amari Cooper. I feel like they're two offenses that are kind of going in opposite directions right now. I sadly fell into the Mike Williams trick. That at least appears to be a trick, but it seems like Mike Williams and Justin Herbert just kind of have been pretty bad the last 3 weeks. And obviously they can right the ship, but it just seems like that trend is kind of going from here to down. Where Amari Cooper seems like he's kind of a little bit more on an uptick. Coming off the bye, he looked a lot better, a lot quicker, a lot faster this week. And with Dak coming back, as long as he's healthy, I feel like that Cowboys offense is going to be a little bit more productive than the Chargers for the rest of the season. It's really tough because I like if Mike Williams gets that early season usage again and that offense turns it up. I like Mike Williams better than Amari Cooper, but currently looking at the trajectory of both offenses, I'm probably holding Cooper. I don't know about you, Ryan.
Well, just looking at what they've done so far this year, in games where Mike Williams sees more than 5 targets, he's over 100 yards or over 80 yards in all those games, has a touchdown in all those games. And if he doesn't see more than 5 targets, he is getting you an average of about 4 points in PPR. So this feels more of like an upside play. If you need the upside, I feel like you can probably go with him, with Mike Williams. But if you're looking for a safe option for the rest of the season, I'd probably lean with Cooper because I feel like he's just going to be more consistently involved with the offense moving forward as opposed to Mike Williams. But Mike Williams has played 2 solid pass defenses the last 2 weeks in Baltimore. They had to bye, and then they played New England last week. So their schedule opens up a little bit. They're at Philadelphia, and then they play Minnesota. But then they go Pittsburgh, at Denver, at Cincy, and then close the year at Giants. They're home to the Giants, home to the Chiefs, at Houston, Denver, and then at Las Vegas. So their playoff schedule is really nice. So he could have big weeks there. So like I said, if you're looking for a safer floor option, I would go with Cooper. If you're looking for the upside, I would chase Mike Williams.
there you have it. I feel like you can't go wrong in either direction. So I guess just however you feel. You want the upside, Chase? I can agree with that, Ryan. I think Mike Williams probably has the highest upside. It's just going to be, can you deal with the weeks that he gives you 2 points? Because I'm going through that now, and it's not fun.
With that start that he had to the season, you're not taking him out of your lineup by any means. So
that's a tough thing. Yeah,
upside's there. So
yeah, he's hard to sit even in a tough matchup because he could give you 30 points. Right. Where Cooper, I feel like, has just got a nice safe floor, but also gives you that upside at times. So that's why I think I would probably just stick with Cooper personally. But yeah, Ryan's also doing better this year in fantasy than me, so that matters to the analysis side of it. All right. Fant has got COVID. ESPN lists him as out. I don't know if he's actually fully announced out. I'm assuming that ESPN saying that.
He's legitimately out?
Yeah, ESPN has him listed as out. But I don't know if he had a positive test.
I feel like every time that they put somebody on COVID, they mark them as out just because they immediately go on the COVID reserve list, but then they have a chance to return.
So either way, I'm treating him as out at the moment. So that's definitely something you want to monitor. At least the rest of the week. See if there is any COVID change. If he does test negative or any breaking news there with that's front. But right now it doesn't look too good for Fant. At least this week.
Do you think that makes Albert O a little viable, like as a streaming option?
That's part of my going rogue part of the
notes. All right.
We will get to Albert O, but yes, I do think it makes him a viable streaming option, Ryan.
All right. I don't know. All you have in the notes is going rogue, so you can't get mad at me for that.
I'm like Rogue One. It's like Star Wars up in here. All right. Darren Waller, questionable. I believe he's probably back this week. I think that's why he missed, and they had the bye week just to get him healthy and hopefully push for the AFC West since the Chiefs kind of just forgot how to play football. Speaking of the Chiefs, we'll segue into the New York Giants. The entire team's questionable. They're just all questionable. Yep. They have 4 wide receivers listed as questionable, and I don't know what to do with any of them. They're probably all game time decisions. Sterling Shepard's injury I haven't heard too much on, but looked a little dicey. Kadarius Toney got a pretty big laceration on his hand, so I hear that's probably not good. And Kenny Golladay just seems like he never plays, so I'm a little worried there. So I think the Giants are just continuing to be that way. Saquon Barkley is the one that's interesting to me. Yeah, he has a shoulder injury, also questionable, all 4 of them. So I think we're down to like Colin Johnson now, who I liked coming out. He has a good athletic profile, big, like him. Just don't know how much he's going to do as a lead receiver. Barkley's one that's interesting. Definitely someone you want to monitor. I feel like he might have a chance to start this week, but also could sit out because of all the other injuries. And I believe am I wrong that they had their bye week? God, I should know these things.
No, they go on bye next week.
Okay, that's what I thought. And I just didn't want to say it out loud until I knew that for sure. But he might sit this week just to get past the bye. So you might see a very limited Giants team. Look for Evan Ingram. Probably not starting Daniel Jones with the limited upside that there is there, playing the Raiders. Little tidbit. Then we have Corey Davis and Tevin Coleman did not practice today. That's pretty bad news, seeing as they have a Thursday night game against Indianapolis. So definitely check your lineups there. I'm sure you're not really starting Tevin Coleman, but Corey Davis is probably someone that some people have that could be a startable option for you. Definitely something to monitor, seeing as he missed last week as well. AB and Gronk listed as questionable. I doubt either of them play. Arians came out and said that Gronk probably shouldn't have played. They probably pushed him a little bit too hard there. So I worry that they kind of re-aggravated it and you might not see him this week. And AB's injuries from last that I've heard are trending to be kind of long-term. So I doubt he plays, but he is listed as questionable.
There was talk of his being like season long.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like it could be real long.
He was last I knew he was on crutches still. So if you were on crutches last week, I sincerely doubt you're playing professional football the following week. So yeah, I would not expect him to play.
Mitchell and Samuel both listed as questionable. Samuel's expected to be limited with a calf injury, and Mitchell is ribs. Definitely two things you want to monitor all week, especially with Elijah Mitchell being a rib injury. Possibly grab JaMychal Hasty in the waiver run, the first one, seeing as in you have a lot of people going after other running backs probably in this first waiver wire run. And most people not really worried about Mitchell's rib injury. Hasty could see a big uptick if Mitchell misses.
Is Jeff Wilson back?
Not yet.
I know he's scheduled to return to practice this week.
Yeah, not yet. He won't play this week. I would. Jeff Wilson to me seems like a Thanksgiving type week, like a couple weeks from now. Still, but I could be wrong. Could be a little early. All right, that wraps up our 28 minutes of injury issues. It seems like that's weekly at this point, sadly.
Insane.
Basically. Ryan, biggest surprise of week 8. The same one that you have is the same that I have, that I'm also very depressed about, and I got kicked out of my Survivor League, and I'm sure everybody can guess who that is. Ryan, the floor is yours.
It's got to be Mike White, man. I mean, it's the easiest call of the week. We said on the live show that we both loved Cincinnati's defense. We loved the fact that I don't think he's ever started a game. I know he's a third year, like 6th round pick or something like that. But threw for 405 yards, almost 9 yards per attempt, 3 touchdowns. But only averaged 3.7 air yards per attempt. So I don't think, that's got to be his career game, right? Like I don't think he's ever going to see that again. Throwing only 3.7 air yards per attempt is not sustainable, but it was awesome to see. Great storyline. After this week, I know he's a huge super flex waiver ad right now, and they came out and said that Zach Wilson's job could potentially be in jeopardy. I can't believe that, to be honest with you, but if Mike White has a good game again on Thursday, then my stance may change a little bit. But for right now, it was a great story. It was awesome to see it, but not really banking on that type of performance ever again.
You don't think he does it against Indy? Technically, statistically, I think Indy has a worse defense than Cincinnati.
They do, but
just saying.
You have a full game of tape on him at least, as opposed to
he just had playmakers making plays. Crowder's making plays. Elijah Moore was making plays. Michael Carter went off. You had guys making plays. So
they did seem more inspired to play. They looked crisper. They looked more engaged. So I don't know if that speaks to how he leads in the huddle, or if they just really wanted to beat the number 1 seed in the AFC at the time. But that game was very impressive for Mike White. But like I said, I just can't see it happening again. And I'd still be willing to stream Indy's defense this week if you need a streaming defense.
Cincinnati didn't do that bad. They still had like 6 or 8 points for defense and most scoring, because they did get a couple turnovers on them. So, all right, Ryan, the meat and the potatoes. Week 9 waiver wires. I went rogue. I made this nice little list here. Quick things. Multiple people. Ryan, I'll let you lead though.
You're not going to go rogue right off the bat?
All right, I'll go rogue.
Go rogue.
Don't grab Adrian Peterson. Bold claim.
What?
Yes, I know. Limited upside, very touchdown dependent. Go after Mikhail Sargent. That's my call. Although if you're in a league with me, I already have him, so joke's on you. However, he has more PPR upside for me. He just wrong person, but he has saw weeks of 4-3 twice. He saw 3 and then 12 targets. I feel like he's already in that offense. He's going to see a boatload of the work, at least in this week with AB. And AP is going to be more of like that. He's going to be the ground and pound running back to an extent. But you're also not going to get Derrick Henry numbers out of him. You're not going to get Derrick Henry numbers out of McNichols or the other option, which is Mikhail Sargent. None of these guys are going to give you that return. So you're looking at who's going to give you the most likely upside. And if you're playing in a PPR league, to me, it's McNichols. He'll have equal touchdown opportunities as AP. And hopefully one of these guys kind of becomes a lead, but I feel like you're just going to run into Baltimore all over again. So I'm not going too crazy here. But I feel like that Jeremy McNichols is the option, followed secondly, personally, by Mikhail Sargent, just because he's going to be cheaper. Because everybody's going to be going after AP. So there you go. There's my rogue stance. Jeremy McNichols over AP. That's all I got to say. That's all you need.
Jeremy, do me a favor. Go into your internet browser right now.
Why?
Go to Sleeper and type in your guy.
Jeremy McNichols? Why?
No, didn't you say Mikhail Sargent?
Well, yeah, he's a third option. Why? Did he get cut or something? Or did he die? Like, just blow out his knee or something.
Mikhail Sargent was released.
When?
And Deontay Foreman got signed.
You know, these Titans, they're killing me.
I knew about Deontay Foreman getting signed. I did not know about Sargent getting released, so I went and looked after you. I heard you say his name, and that's why I started smiling, because I saw that he had gotten released. And I was terrible. Like, he clearly does not know that.
That's terrible news. I loved him. He was great in the preseason. That makes no sense.
He did look good in the preseason, and Deontay Foreman hasn't been anything in a long, long time.
How big's Deontay Foreman?
6'1", 230.
That's why. So they're trying to replicate Henry. Because Mikhail Sargent's only 5'8", 208. So that would explain it. Which honestly makes me even more worried for AP, but whatever. Either way, it's Jeremy McNichols, and then go after Deontay Foreman instead of Sargent, because apparently they just cut him. Like, I don't know.
I do like the McNichols call, though. I will give you that. I feel like he is the PPR guy to own. I cannot expect a guy like Adrian Peterson, who is, 36 now, to get any sort of significant workload. And McNichols has been involved for every game that he's been healthy for the most part. I don't know, Jeremy, you might have said it while I was laughing at the Mikhail Sargent thing, but
rude.
Outside of week 6 against Buffalo, he's seen a relative snap share. And like you said, he did have 12 targets against the Jets. So I do like that. I do like that call with McNichols. I just had to poke a little fun at you for the Mikhail Sargent thing.
Well, apparently whatever. Either way, go with McNichols or Deontay Foreman over AP. I just see AP like the Detroit version of AP, and it's just kind of going to be like a hard to start kind of guy. I could be wrong, but I just feel like everybody's going to be dumping 30, 40, 50% of their fab on AP, and you could probably get McNichols at like 20 or 30%, and he might be the better option there especially if you're in a PPR league.
So just as a base point for Adrian Peterson, last year with the Lions, I believe, he only had 4 games that he averaged over 4 yards a carry.
Yeah, and I mean, well, it's the Lions, but that's the thing. And I just don't know if any of these running backs will be really totally viable. I think everybody's going to be expecting Derrick Henry-esque / a slight downtick, and it might be just even worse. Like, we don't know. We've only ever seen Derrick Henry really in this offense, and he's a freak, and he has a ton of yards after contact, and that's either A, because he's just initiating contact, or B, because this offensive line isn't as good as we think. So I just think it's going to get messy. So I'm going to take the PPR guy, and I envision them just throwing a lot more. So,
yep, I agree with that. I would definitely expect a uptick in pass attempts for Ryan Tannehill from here on out. But I will say on Derrick Henry, he's expected to miss up to 10 weeks, but it could be as little as 6. So I wouldn't be dropping him for any redraft league. I would hold him because if he does come back in week 15 or 16, he might just be the guy that wins you a championship if you get that far without him. So I'm not dropping him until I know for sure that he's out until the playoffs or whatever the case may be for them.
I almost feel like the only situation you see Derrick Henry is if they have to fight to get in.
That's what I mean. But if they comfortably ahead in their division.
Exactly. So they're comfortably ahead already. If they can get through the rest of the season without Derrick Henry, they're going to do it, and they're going to have him come back for the playoffs.
What if they need to win their last 2 games?
If they have to, then maybe he plays. But you're talking the last 2 games. So you're talking 17 and 18, and you might have him in 17. Some leagues might not have 17 as their playoff. Depends on format. I just don't think you see Derrick Henry as far as a fantasy season goes. I do think that he might get back in the season. I just don't know if he's going to help your team personally.
If he's back in 6 weeks, that puts him at week 15 at the bare minimum. So
I just don't see 6. I mean, 6 would be like an anomaly, So I don't. I see more of that.
He is the anomaly.
I understand that, but I see more of like an 8, and I don't see him rushing him back. If they have any type of hope at the playoffs, they're going to want him for the playoffs.
Yeah,
they're not going to rush him back from a Liz Frank. You know what I mean? Like, that's the same injury that Travis Etienne has. You know what I mean? Like, it's an injury that lingers, and I don't expect them to rush him back unless they absolutely have to. I think they'd rather him sit the 10 weeks, be ready for week 18, possibly play like as limited touches just to get him out there to get a little acclimated, and then have him for the playoffs. That's my personal opinion. I think that's the route. When they say he's not done for the season, that's what I think they're saying.
Yeah.
More so than like returning in the regular season.
From a professional and a purely human standpoint, that is the smartest way to go about this. But I'm just saying, if there's any chance that he does come back, there's no way I'm dropping him, letting somebody pick him up and stash him just in case he does come back.
Well, I mean, that's fair. I understand.
That's all I'm saying.
Quick question, because I know we aren't actually covering Boston Scott, which we probably should. But thoughts on Boston Scott? I'm in on Boston Scott. If he's on your waiver wire, I am perfectly okay with adding him. It appears that all that it took was Miles Sanders getting hurt for Philadelphia to be comfortable running the football. They ran the ball way more than they usually do. So I like Boston Scott. It's clear. I don't know why they went with him. Not that he's not talented or anything, but it was all year. It was Kenny Gainwell's an RB2 usage leading up to this. The injury happens and they slid to Boston Scott. So I'm in. I prefer Boston Scott over Jordan Howard. If I miss out on Boston Scott, I'm not even interested in Jordan Howard. He just had 2 touchdowns. That's why he had so many fantasy points.
He averaged almost 5 yards a carry.
It was the Lions. Relax.
They play the Chargers.
Okay, your point.
They're like the worst run defense in the league.
To me, though, it's just I'm on Boston Scott, and that's it. Because I don't know if they run the ball as much as they did against the Lions. They were up early, and they got a benefactor. I mean, Jalen Hurts had 180 yards or something. Very minimal.
I did not know that discrepancy was so large. 46 rushes to 14 passes.
Yeah. They got up super early. I think there was a couple turnovers. There was a pick six, I think, by Darius Slay. They had no reason to throw the ball. So they were running a lot. So for me, I think in a game that would be probably more neutral of a game script, I feel like it's just Boston Scott and Kenny Gainwell. If they have to pass, I feel like they're going to use Kenny Gainwell. So,
yeah, I agree. I think that's where the situation was just the game script doesn't fit Gainwell's play style. Boston Scott has been an effective runner in the league already. He was relatively effective last year, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah,
or maybe it was the year before. But he's been effective for them. So I'm not really surprised that they used him in that situation. I'm just shocked that they didn't use Gainwell hardly at all in the ground game into the first three quarters. I think, if I remember correctly from what I wrote down, he only had 6 snaps through the first three quarters.
Yeah, he was very limited.
I mean, that's just insane. So I would expect a much different game script for this game against the Chargers. Like you said, I'm honestly not interested in Jordan Howard either. Just because I do expect that game to be much, much closer. If not, they're trailing. So
let's put it this way. I would rather take Boston Scott than Adrian Peterson.
That's fair.
Do you know what I mean? So if I'm putting waiver wires in tonight and I'm deciding between Adrian Peterson, Boston Scott, say Derek Gore, some of these bigger name running backs that are going to be on that waiver wire, I would probably put my preference to Boston Scott. I think that he probably has the most upside of any of those guys, just purely on basis of what he is and what he's done in the past and what I think the offenses will look like. So I'm in on him, JM. And I believe I can say, Ryan, you're kind of in on him.
Yeah, I am, but I'm just not expecting 2 touchdowns again this week. I think he's more balanced, so I feel like he's going to be involved regardless of the game script. That's just he's the one back right now for them that is going to be involved regardless of what their score looks like. That's just how I'm looking at it. So if you have a guy like that at this point in the year where they're going to be involved no matter what, he has to be on your waiver ad list.
Yeah, I feel like he's Miles Sanders. If you had Miles Sanders, I mean, you're getting what Miles Sanders gave you. You know what I mean? He's closer to what Miles Sanders was giving you than what AP is going to give you for Derrick Henry. So,
yeah, yeah, for sure.
All right, Ryan, hit us with one.
So, I didn't touch on the bigger name guys like you had mentioned, Derek Gore. I didn't mention Boston Scott or AP because those guys, it doesn't matter who you're listening to. Those guys are already being mentioned. So for me, I'm going after guys that I feel like have really high season long upside now after the trade deadline and just with recent news that broke.
Trade deadline? Nobody got traded.
I know, but that's what I'm saying.
I'm just messing with you.
And
you don't like having the fun.
Guys got released. Hint, hint. So
all right, here we
there's
go.
upside plays here after the trade deadline. So number one for me is Bryan Edwards, and he's seen at least 4 targets in all but one game so far this year, averaging over 11 yards per catch in all but one game this year. And with the unfortunate news of Henry Ruggs, I'm sure everybody's heard what happened. I'm not really going to speak on it, but terrible news just in general. I don't expect him to be back anytime soon. So Edwards is in line to be the wide receiver 1 in an offense that's throwing the ball 38 times per game. And currently, according to Player Profiler, he is 5th in ADOT, 4th in yards per reception, 6th in yards per target, and 12th in target quality rating. So he was a guy that a lot of people, Jeremy, I think you were one of them included, and myself was included in this group, that expected him to have a big year. They had really high hopes for him in the offseason, had really high expectations when they drafted him. So now it's a perfect time to get him involved. I don't really see anybody else coming in and taking that wide receiver 1 role outside of Darren Waller. You might see Kenyon Drake getting up, taking targets, but I feel like Bryan Edwards is probably the guy that sees the highest, the most benefits out of the Henry Rugg news and situation that they have going on over there right now.
I agree. Another name there I like is Zay Jones, former Buffalo Bill, kind of fell off. He kind of was seeing a target increase to begin with. So I could see him possibly getting a little more work. But yeah, I like Bryan Edwards. Like you said, I mean, he's not owned in many leagues at the current moment, and someone's gonna have to catch the ball there. It's gonna go back to a lot of Darren Waller, Hunter Renfrow, and Bryan Edwards seems like the logic there. I'm not looking for huge upside there when you're hitting that. I feel like I was in on Bryan Edwards. He profiles really well. He's got a great profile, and he's a talented receiver. Just the way the offense is built, I don't expect much more than wide receiver 3 numbers out of him. But at this point of the season, with all the injuries, that's great. I would take that as a flex play. So I like it. Because he's only figure he's giving you a decent target share. I mean, he's a touchdown away from being a low-end wide receiver 2 most weeks. So.
And with Derek Carr, if he's not still in the top 5 for passing, he's been top 5 all year. So, they're going to be throwing the ball still. I don't expect them to abandon that just because Henry Ruggs is gone. So that's just kind of where I'm at with it. I just don't expect that to change a whole lot.
Yeah, I agree. I love it. Anytime we can talk about Bryan Edwards, I'm happy. So I love it. Another wide receiver, also super highly touted this offseason, that is floating around your waiver wires like crazy. Are you ready for this, Ryan?
I don't like not knowing. I like being able to counter whatever.
It's more fun this way. Jamal Agnew, baby.
Oh wow! All right. Hey, he's
basically nowhere. And the last 3 weeks, he has seen 7, 6, and 12 targets in a dismal Jacksonville Jaguars offense. He's produced 9, 12, and 14 PPR points the last 3 weeks. He has a pretty favorable playoff schedule, and with the lack that they want to use Laviska Shenault for some odd reason, he just seems like a target machine at this point, and the offense losing possibly James Robinson could be great for him. This waiver wire ad would not necessarily be the greatest start in week 9 as they draw the Bills, but he is a great season-long type little sleeper guy that you can probably get under the radar at the moment because most people still just don't really know he exists, but he's seen a good target share. He's also seen a great snap increase every single week. He was up to almost 70% this week. So I like Jamal Agnew, as well as Dan Arnold. If he's out there on your waiver wires, he's not necessarily on my list, but another guy that's seeing a lot of target share there in that Jacksonville offense. We're going to take a break from our waivers as we have a question from Nick here. 10-team league, full PPR. Should I trade Khalil Herbert and Justin Jefferson for Adam Thielen and Damian Harris? Is this dynasty, Nick?
This can't be dynasty. Or
it can't be dynasty because I don't know why you trade Justin Jefferson, but I'm just asking, just out of pure questions. Looking at it as a redraft, full PPR. I personally would probably say yes here. I like Adam Thielen. I know he's a little bit touchdown dependent, but he kind of just seems like he's Kirk Cousins' guy. Justin Jefferson obviously gets his target share. But this offense isn't as much Dalvin Cook as we thought this year. It seems like he's been a little bit ineffective. And Adam Thielen's getting his share. He kind of had some boom weeks. You got to deal with possibly seeing a little bit of a bust here from Adam Thielen. But I feel like the drop at the current moment from Justin Jefferson to Adam Thielen is less than what you're gaining going from Damian Harris to Khalil Herbert, in my personal opinion. Herbert's been impressive, and I like him. However, when Montgomery comes back, you have to assume that there's going to at least be probably a split share because Montgomery was very effective and looked very good at the tail end of last season and the beginning of this season. So Khalil Herbert could lose his job completely. Matt Nagy's done crazier things. So I like making that move at the moment, just because you're getting that extra running back flex ability, and you're not dropping too far from Justin Jefferson to Adam Thielen in a redraft standpoint. If it's dynasty, definitely do not do this. But if you're looking this season, I like it. I personally, I don't know about you,
Ryan. You basically said everything that I was going to say, to be honest with you. I'm perfectly fine with making that deal. It hurts to lose a guy like Justin Jefferson because that upside's so high. But Kirk Cousins does love Adam Thielen, loves him in the red zone. And like you said, Khalil Herbert's going to get Montgomery back. He's going to get Tariq Cohen back as well. So it's going to look shaky from here on out as long as both of those guys stay healthy once they return. And Damian Harris is riding such a hot streak. Not to mention that their fantasy playoff schedule is extremely running back friendly outside of the matchup with Buffalo in week 15. I think they play 16. So you get a huge upgrade there, in my opinion, for Khalil Herbert to Damian Harris season long. And then, like Jeremy said, Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen they got to be neck and neck in terms of targets. I'm looking at them right now, and they seem relatively close outside of the one game that Thielen only had 3 targets. But then JJ only had 4 targets last week against Dallas. So I'm perfectly fine making that deal. Like you said, especially if you're in need of running back help, Damian Harris definitely helps, and you don't take a huge loss in the wide receiver. So, yeah, I would make that deal.
Yeah, especially because you could argue Thielen's upside is just as much as Justin Jefferson. In the same offense, and I get Justin Jefferson's probably more talented, but ultimately Thielen sees the most of the touchdowns. I mean, Thielen's probably he had a 32-point game. I think he has the highest scoring game of that wide receiving core this year. So I like it. Thoughts on Hunter Renfrow and Michael Thomas? Landon, I like Hunter Renfrow, especially with the unfortunate Ruggs news, like we mentioned earlier. He's been pretty consistent all season, so now losing another wide receiver option there, I think Renfrow could see a little bit more uptick. Not crazy, but he's going to see a little bit more. And then Michael Thomas, yeah, I don't know what to do there, to be honest, Ryan. I can let you touch a little bit on it, but with Taysom Hill, I get a little worried with Michael Thomas. If they do start Trevor Siemian, I think that's a little bit more interesting. As sad as that sounds, I like Trevor Siemian more for the fantasy options than Taysom Hill. Taysom Hill probably is a better quarterback option because he's going to give you that rushing floor. But for the weapons outside of that, I kind of almost like Trevor Siemian a little better. I don't know about you, Ryan. How do you feel with Michael Thomas at this point? If it was still Winston, yeah, I like Michael Thomas, but I'm still just now.
Yeah, I'm honestly not sure what to do with Michael Thomas. I have him in one dynasty league. I drafted him, and I'm just not sure what to do with him. With the news with Jameis going down, I wouldn't be surprised if he, just with how diva-ish he seems to be, and I don't like to judge people's character just based off of what we see from reports and things like that, but he just seems like the type of guy that just cares about him. And if he's not going to look good, I don't think he's going to want to come back. He's still not practicing, and they're just kind of dead in the water in terms of fantasy quarterbacks right now because, like you said, Taysom Hill is probably a better fantasy option as a quarterback, but in terms of helping his receivers and running backs for fantasy, it's probably Trevor Siemian that probably gives you the most upside just because of the way he operates the offense and lack of
rushing.
What's the word I'm looking for?
Rushing. He's got to throw. You know what I mean? Like, but Kamara's going to see more dump offs. He's more precise / built. He's more Drew Brees like than Taysom Hill. Let's put it that way. I mean, I'm not saying he's Drew Brees. I'm just saying
I'm putting that on Twitter right now.
All right, yeah, go ahead. Whatever. I'm just saying he functions more like Drew Brees does. He doesn't have the rushing upside. He's a decently accurate quarterback. Like he functions that offense the way that Drew Brees would have, just at a discounted effort.
Yeah, it's just and just the fact that Taysom Hill, I mean, he does average a little bit more in terms of yards per attempt, like than I thought it was. It was 7.7 for last year, or for his career, but he just gives you so much more in terms of flexibility for the offensive playbook it's just not fantasy viable in terms of your other guys. So I don't know. I feel like Michael Thomas is still if you're somebody that can get him cheap in redraft, I would try it just to see what you can deal for him. But I'm not necessarily chasing him, especially now with Jameis gone.
To be honest, I feel like Michael Thomas might end up being the best receiver if he comes back with Taysom Hill, just because of that depth of target and what Michael Thomas gives you. I feel like Taysom Hill might like him. I feel like Taysom Hill's not going to stretch the field. You're going to see like Deontay Harris, Traquan Smith, Callaway might get hurt a little bit as field stretchers, but I don't know. Michael Thomas is real dicey. Like Ryan said, if you can get him cheap or he's still like on your IR, if your redraft has IR or your dynasty, I would hold him. He's too good with the upside to get rid of for anything personally. So
I went back and looked. I might have been overthinking it a little bit, but with Taysom Hill at quarterback last year in those 4 games, Thomas saw 12, 6, 11, and 8 targets. So he was the preferred option, mainly because he's the best wide receiver they have. So I think he's still going to be viable just because he is the best wide receiver that they have. I'm just really concerned about the ceiling, especially given that he hasn't even practiced yet. So,
yeah.
But Hunter Renfrow, I'm in on him. I'll say that.
Yeah. Renfrow, I don't mind Michael Thomas. I'm not like giving up a ton for him, though. That's where I'm at. Fair price, I'll take him. But Melvin Gordon is available on my waivers. You guys think Williams takes over? JM, I'm going to say with them not trading Melvin Gordon at the deadline, like they did Von Miller, I'm going to say no. Williams does not take over. Aside from an injury from Melvin Gordon, I think they see an even split. Both backs have been equally effective. They have eerily similar stat lines. And Melvin Gordon hasn't looked bad. The problem is both upsides are kind of capped. We kind of saw Gordon have a blow-up game last week and getting that 20 points because he did get the 2 touchdowns. So I don't mind grabbing Melvin Gordon. I have a lot of teams that have both Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams on them because, to be honest, they're both decent flexes, and like bye weeks and all these injuries, they both average about 8-9 PPR points a game. And I know those aren't stellar numbers, but they're nice, safe floors. And we saw that upside with Melvin Gordon last week. He got you 20 points, and I played him as a flex play. So it's kind of like, I personally don't hate it. I like guys that have decently safe floors that also offer me upside. And I feel like Melvin Gordon still offers that, even though it's kind of like a split backfield. Ryan, do you have anything to add?
I want to know how deep of a league it is if he's available on waivers, to be honest with you, especially with all the injuries that are happening at the running back position. How is he available in terms of waivers? Like, if you don't have like a surefire RB,
I mean, if it's
RB2, like how do you not have him on your roster? We're talking about picking up Adrian Peterson and Jeremy McNichols.
Hey man, I don't know. Maybe it's 8 team, maybe 10 team. I don't know.
Even 8 team, he's still got to be owned.
I don't know.
He's an RB2. That's just silly. Go pick him up. Drop somebody. Just go pick him up.
I don't know the league rules, Ryan. God, you're acting like I should know that answer.
This guy.
He told us Mike Davis was coming. Even split and carries. I mean, you're right. You weren't wrong. Still don't like Mike Davis. The upside's just not there. I mean, it might be honestly, though, he might be onto something. I mean, Ridley being out definitely could lead to maybe a little bit more Mike Davis love. I just still am unexcited by. It's sad that I'm unexcited by Mike Davis, who gives you like 9 or 10 points a week, but yet I'm over here like, yo, Melvin Gordon, who's like the exact same player. So, maybe Mike Davis isn't that bad. All right,
so,
Ryan.
Real quick, we're getting late. My second and third guys, Van Jefferson with Deshaun Jackson getting released, takes away a lot of big plays that potentially went Jefferson's way. He's averaged over 10 yards per reception all but one game. And if Woods or Kupp goes down, I think he becomes extremely, extremely viable in that offense. And then number 3 for me is Pat Fryermuth, who has seen a snap share increase in 3 straight weeks, Sunday being the highest, coming off the bye at 78%, back-to-back games with 7 targets and at least 44 yards. Tight end landscape is a mess, but if you take Fryermuth's last 2 games, his 19% target share would be higher than guys like Kyle Pitts, Dalton Schultz, Mike Gesicki. So if his percentages continue, he's going to be a weekly tight end 1 with a lot of touchdown upside.
Yeah, I will endorse both of those takes. I like Van Jefferson. You kind of saw some run already to begin with, and then now with Deshaun Jackson going, even more opportunities for him. And Pat Fryermuth, I agree. They like Pat Fryermuth a lot there. Big Ben likes his tight ends. Eric Ebron is questionable again this week, so you could see Ebron get phased out of there. Ebron's definitely been impressive. I'll give you guys 2 more. One was Albert O, who Ryan alluded to earlier. If you're looking for a streaming tight end, I like him this week. He's a very athletic tight end. He was a little raw coming out, and obviously being behind Fant allowed him to be pretty available pretty much in every league format. Mm-hmm. But he's seen 3 or so targets. He's averaging about 5 PPR points, nothing crazy. But without Noah Fant, there should be an uptick there for sure. This week, especially going against Dallas, Trayvon Diggs and them usually lock down the outsides, so they might see a big game there for him. And then Ty Johnson's one for me. He's had 3 weeks of double-digit PPR fantasy points, 3 weeks in which he's had 3, 7, and 6 targets. He scored 2 touchdowns over the last 3 weeks. He could be a cheaper option. A lot of people have forgotten about him, and if other people are attacking other wide or running backs like the Boston Scotts or the APs or the McNichols, Ty Johnson quietly is having a good 3 weeks. So that pretty much sums up mine. And that pretty much sums us up for the day, Ryan. We're hitting about that just over the hour mark. So I'm tired. You're tired. Listeners are tired. Ryan, why don't you let them know where they can find you, and if you have anything coming up aside from our Start Shit Show Sunday mornings, about 9:30, 10 o'clock. Tune in. We give you stuff, good information. Sometimes it pays off. Sometimes it doesn't.
Sometimes.
After you say that, okay, we'll answer this first. Should I trade Myles Gaskin for Michael Pittman Jr.? Yes.
Yes.
That's all I got to say.
Yeah. There's no. There's nothing else needs to be said. Yes, do that.
Hit accept now. Ryan.
What's up?
Where can they find you, and what do you have going on?
Yeah, you can just find me on Twitter at Mackie_FFB. Jared, I didn't tell you this. I actually got paid for fantasy advice this weekend.
That means you're a pro.
I got a guy. I jokingly put my Venmo in a comment that he had, and he literally paid me because I helped him win his week last week. And I'm not gonna lie, I don't really know what to do with it. I'm not gonna say how much it was, but he paid me, and
that's pretty.
I feel weird spending money like that. Like, I feel like I should donate it.
Cool. That's pretty cool. Donate it. Donations are always fun. Always accepted everywhere.
Yeah, I'm gonna donate it. Anyways, yeah, just find me on Twitter at Mackie_FFB. I'm really trying to find the information I need to do an article for biggest disappointments on ADP so far this year. Taking a little bit longer than I thought, just because it's kind of obvious on who some of these guys are. But just looking for deeper information. So hopefully be coming with that soon. If not, then I'm just kind of doing my thing. Start sit show on Sunday mornings and doing research for this and being a dad, man.
Dads. I'm not a dad, but you're a dad. Cool. I love dads. Either way, you can find me on Twitter at PopesFFH. I have articles over at Yards Per Weekly for start and sits, as well as I have content coming out for the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. I just dropped a incoming rookies for 2022 for all of our Dynasty fans.
Ooh.
It's a prelude to the top 25 guys to keep an eye on. Some guys are on there, some guys are not, but draft season's coming. If you're like me and you're injury ridden and most of your teams are like 3-12, you know, I've moved on. It's time. So you're going to get draft content even earlier. Anyways, till next week, take